Good morning, folks. My name is Daniel Durant, and I work for the American Federation of Teachers. It's a teachers union that represents the teachers in Hartford. We also represent the paraprofessionals in Hartford, other cities as well, New Haven, New Britain, Meriden, some other towns like that. And I do community organizing and new organizing for the union. Community organizing has a lot to do with the work that you guys are going to be engaged in when it comes to trying to get people registered to vote, this youth committee. Some of the things Maxine and you all have been talking about doing sounds really exciting. To be organized, to be involved in shaping the world and shaping the future the way you would like to see it. So today, what I want to talk with you guys about, and I'm also an NAACP member here in Hartford. Actually, I belong to a couple of different organizations, but I'm definitely an NAACP member, a big supporter of the NAACP. And what I want to talk to you guys a little bit about today is an organizing conversation and assessment.
Hi,
My name's Stay McCauley.
I'm NAACP McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Okay, so let's get started. So why do we want to, when you see that word organizing conversation, what does that mean to you? Does it pop to you? What does it mean to you? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? When you see that word organizing conversation, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Yep.
Focus and structure.
Focus and structure. I like that. Focus on what?
Like focusing on one particular topic. Say, for instance, like, political representation. Like, talking about, political speakers of color. I mean, political speakers of color, like Hispanic ones or Black ones or any other type of minority here in America, and talking about them being, getting their voice out there and speaking on behalf, and I don't know if I would say speaking on behalf of their people, but maybe speaking for their community.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. Like, it's an organized conversation with some intention to it, right? So you're talking about very specific intentions that NAACP is trying to do, but an organizing conversation is a conversation that has some intentions to it, right? If you take a look at the first definition, if you look at the first sheet that looks like this, some of them look similar. Right? But what we're trying to do in an organizing conversation is have a conversation that leads to something else, leads to more things, right? Leads to more organizing, to bringing folks together. It leads to campaigns. In this particular case, we're looking at organizing drives. We're trying to get new members into the union. But for you guys, you're going to be having this survey go around. You're going to be having conversations with people in the community about voting rights, correct? Right? So, when you're going out to people to have a conversation with them about voting, or to do this survey about voting rights, you're not just going to walk up to the person and say, hey, fill this out, right? You're probably going to want to try and have like a conversation with the person and try and get to know the person, because you're building a network, you're building an organization, you're building so that you're building structure and support, like you said, so that you can affect some of those changes with people of color and the different issues that you guys are working on, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So how many of you guys have gone out and had conversations with people in the community before? Taisha, you have?
Yes.
Okay, what was that like?
You got a lot of different opinions.
Got a lot.
Different people, and you see that certain groups of people tend to have some of the same opinions on things.
Yeah, I think that's really important to recognize, because many times a lot of people will be dealing with the same issues, but you wouldn't necessarily know that. You wouldn't necessarily be able to readily identify that someone, your next door neighbor, may be having a tough time, or another person down the road is, going through a similar situation. But the organizing conversation helps us to get to actually know the people that we're surveying, right? And then once we get to know them, we could ask more, we could get more information, we could learn more about them, and maybe, and hopefully, I think what the intention is that we can get to a place where we can make some changes, right? So if we find out that there's a whole bunch more people who are dealing with the same issues, we could use our political system, right, to try and gather support to create a campaign to change those conditions, right, to improve those conditions. Can you guys think of any condition that you would like to change? Schools? Okay.
What about schools?
The physical buildings, they are not up to date. The safety, there's like mold I think in Berkeley, there's like mold and black mold in the schools. That can cause a lot of health issues for women. And then the materials that they have, they're not up to date. I know Milner definitely was not up to date. Theirs wasn't even like 2012 worthy, and it's 2018. Like I believe those books didn't even have. I forgot what event, like 7-Eleven. That's not good. And it's 2018, and the teachers as well. Like I don't feel like they care too much about it. I feel like if you're a teacher, you work with kids, especially in an area like Hartford, you should actually care about the kids. It's not just a paycheck. Like you're impacting kids' lives. You see them, you see kids more than the kids see their parents, and you should teach with care, like you actually love these kids.
Yeah, and that's missing in some cases, right? So, do you think other kids feel the same way?
Definitely.
Right. So again, when we talk about a structured conversation, or organizing conversation that leads to something, that's kind of what we're talking about. So if you and your fellow students got together and said, the school lunch is bad, for example, or there's mold in this, this high school or what have you, the chance. Or I don't have a teacher that looks like me, right? Right? Then you coming together, you're having focused conversations, right, that lead to some kind of organizing, some type of action. Make sense? All right. So let's talk about this organizing conversation. So you come in, you have this survey, you're going to come in and you're going to meet somebody for the first time. What's the first thing you're going to do?
Introduce yourself.
You're going to introduce yourself, right? Everybody has, should have some kind of a short, quick introduction to introduce who you are when you're coming to begin a conversation, an organizing conversation, and do your survey or what have you, right? Quick introduction, who you are, and why you're here, right? Why you're here, and why are you here talking to this person, right? Everyone likes to feel a little special, right? So when you come and you introduce yourself, you're trying to introduce who you are, brief introduction, who you are, why you're here, why it's important that you need to talk to this person, right? So we want to make sure, folks, we want people to feel that there's some sense of urgency, right? This survey is important. We want to hear what you have to say, right? And that's why we're here talking to you. Sometimes, and when you guys read this, you'll see that there will be a lot of references to union members and coworkers. That's just because I work for a union, and a lot of times this is how we organize. We use this for talking to coworkers. you guys might not necessarily be talking to coworkers. You're going to be talking to co-community people, other folks in the community, right? So first thing you want to do is introduce yourself. Try to express some kind of urgency about why you're here, why it's important that you talk to this person, right? And then you begin the conversation. And so you see here it says, what's next after you do your introduction? You want to get the individual story, right? So if I'm going out to get this survey, why is it important for me to get the story from the person that I'm talking to? And what does that mean to get the story?
Because
I was gonna say, it's important to get their story so that you can understand their perspective and where they're coming from, so then that way you can better apply, asking them about, taking the survey, or asking them some questions about what they want to change in their community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not sure if I have anything else, sorry.
What's that?
Not sure if I have anything else to say, sorry.
Oh, no, that's great. No, that's great. When you begin to learn more about the person, no one really wants to participate in things that they don't think are relevant to them, right? People want to, participate in things that they believe will have some effect in their life. When you're having a conversation with someone and you just introduced yourself, you want to have this conversation, now you want to get their story, what are some of the things you want to know about them? Or maybe I should give you some ideas or some things that you would want to know about people, unless you guys have some ideas.
when it's related to voting, right?
What's that?
When it's related to voting, like what you would want to know about.
Yeah, like, so I'm coming to your house. I just met you. I introduced myself. My name is Daniel. I'm here. I'm a high school student at such and such school. I'm an NAACP member, and we're really trying to meet folks in this community and talk to you about voting, right? And we have this survey, and I want to talk to you, right? Where do you work? Maybe. Huh?
Like if you have you ever voted like in the previous years?
Yep. So that's on the survey, right? So, but now we're just saying, just to start a conversation, we're having an organizing conversation. Before we even get to the survey, what do we want to know about the person? We might want to know if he or she is a teacher, because that's your issue, right, Taishe? One of your issues. Are you a teacher at Hartford Public Schools, right? Where do you work? What other questions could you ask to try to get to know someone? In here it says, what does the unit member do at work? What do you do? What is it like? Do you like your work? Is it satisfying? Is it unsatisfying? Right?
What things in the community like affects you or bothers you?
Yeah, absolutely. Are there things in this community, we've identified some things in this community that we care about. What are some of the things you care about? As much as you can, try to make some kind of a connection with the person, right? Based on what they think, what their experiences are, okay? There's no right or wrong answers. This is a type of thing where it's just a conversation, right? But you do want to try and get to know the person that you're speaking to. Second piece is, then the third phase of the conversation is what we call agitation, right? But it's called, in this particular thing, it's called what could be. So the first time you ask some questions, what do you like about your job? What do you not like about your job? Or what do you like about what's happening in the Hartford school system right now? What do you don't like about, what do you dislike about it, right? The person comes up with a couple of ideas. Yeah, I dislike the fact that, we have mold in these schools. And that the teachers don't seem to express the same love that, you would expect from someone who's in the classroom with them all day. These are my issues, right? The agitation piece becomes, well, what are you going to do about it? What can you do about it? What do you think could be done about it? Right? And then you start having that discussion with a person, right? You can ask questions like, is it likely to change, right? What have you ever tried anything to change it before, right? So now we're actually we're using what we got from the information when we got their story, right? We're using what we got from that information to agitate them a little bit. And I love the way Dick Gregory referred to detergent that you use to wash your clothes, laundry detergent, as agitator, right? And I don't know, maybe it wasn't just him, I'm sure other folks have used it, but they use the term agitator, right? Because unless you have agitation, you're not gonna get those clothes clean, right? The agitator is kind of like the friction, right? The thing that's gonna get the dirt out, right? So you're trying to agitate the person a little bit because you're trying to see what they're passionate about, right? So we want to move these folks to action. Remember, the organizing conversation is trying to move us to some kind of organized action. So now you found out a little bit about the person's issue. Now you're going to agitate them a little bit, right? So how does that make you feel, right? How does that make you feel, Taisha? When we talked about your issues at school that you gave us 2. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like they're not learning at their best capability.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if they're not getting educated properly, they're not gonna, like, it's all like a domino effect. They're not getting educated properly, so you don't even want to really learn because the teachers make you feel like they don't care about you. So then why would you go to class? Like, people start skipping. Like, I feel like the classroom should be something you look forward. Like people should be like, I look forward to going to class. I look forward, even if you don't like school in general, I look forward to going to at least one of the 6 or 5 classes we may have a day. Like, if you get that motivation for them to actually go to class, then they'll have that motivation to go to school. And when you're in school and you're learning, you're going to have a higher chance of being successful.
Mm-hmm. So I could sense a few different emotions in there, don't you guys? Like she said, you know, she loses motivation. The flip side of what you're saying is the motivation, right? You don't feel motivated. Does it
I'm
make
speaking for like
other people?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, how does it make you feel?
Oh, personally?
That the schools are in the situation that they're in?
It makes me upset.
It makes you upset. All right. Perfect. Right? Because people don't begin to act or get involved or do action unless there's some kind of agitation, right? That they're angry, they're upset, or they're mad, you know, just, you know, or those are all probably the 3 the same, angry, upset, or mad. But unless there's some kind of emotional investment, something that makes them feel is connected to them, right? So you found out something about the person, now you want to agitate, you want to pull it out, right? You want to pull out that emotion, you want to pull out that kind of, you know, those kind of reactions, okay? Does that make sense? Are we good with that? All right, so one of the things that you could do, and if we read it, what it says here, is try to get the person to imagine what could be, right? So imagine how things could be different if you and your coworkers had a voice. In this case, imagine if you're talking to someone, say, imagine if, you know, all the parents got together in the city, you know, and said and did something about this, what could happen, right? That's also a form of agitation. So it could be leading to people to get angry, but it also could lead people into getting hopeful about some positive change that could happen. And depending on what you're trying to do, in this case it's a survey, you know, this is when you begin to start to get towards your intentions of why you're there, like what you would like to do. That's why we're out here with this survey. We want you to fill out this survey kind of thing, right? Because we feel the way you feel, or that's why we're organizing, because we believe the same things that you believe, that kind of thing. Or this is why because now what you're doing is you're taking the information that you got about what their main issues are, you agitated them about it a little bit, right? And so now you're introducing a pathway, right? And the pathway is, if we come together, if we do this survey, if we go out and we do these things together, we'll be able to make some of those changes. Does that make sense? All right. So now we go to a place that we call inoculation. Anybody use that word before? Before coming to the union and doing this work, I never used that word inoculation before. Anyone else ever used that word? Anyone knows what it means? No? So inoculation is another one of those fun words like agitation, right? That could be used in different ways. Like we just gave the example of agitation means to like kind of get a person aggravated or get a person riled up. But it also could be used as a form of a detergent so that you put in your clothes, the agitator. So inoculation is kind of one of those things that could be used in different ways. And the word inoculation is like when you go to get a flu shot, the shot that they give you or whatever shots you get, they usually call those inoculations, right? It's an inoculation because if you guys know how the flu shot works is what they do is they load you up with the flu in the shot, in the inoculation, right? So that your body could put up its natural defenses to fight it off. So that when the certain, hello? So that when the flu season comes along, your body will already have built up the defenses. So you can just keep these in the front. So similarly, when we're having an organizing conversation, we want to do a little bit of inoculation. And in a sense, what we're saying there is to explain to people that, hey, I'm not saying this is going to be easy, right? We're trying to come together, we're trying to make a change, but there are going to be people who are going to fight against us, right? There are going to be people who are going to oppose what we're doing. They're going to like for things to stay exactly the way they are, right? So we do a little bit of inoculation is when we try to, kind of not really warn the person, but be real with the person, be realistic with the person, right? Because we're not saying that, oh, if you fill out this survey, everything's gonna automatically change, right? We couldn't say that to people, right? Because what happens if we tell people you fill out our survey, everything's gonna change?
It's gonna raise their expectations. Probably not exponentially, but it's going to raise their expectations to a certain level where they might get a false sense of reality, where they think that if I sign this, something will change instantaneously.
Right.
Whereas, I guess if you want like more policy changes or any construction to go on, like in terms of like remodeling schools and making sure that everything is healthy and safe for the students and the faculty members there. That's going to take more time than just hey, I did something and I'll be able to make a change. It takes a lot more time and there's a lot more policies that need to get passed. And if they don't get passed, then we're stuck where we are.
Very good, very good. And I'll just add to that. What happens when you come back around next time to get them to fill out something else? And you tell them, right, you're on this campaign. Do you think you have the same credibility?
No.
You don't have the same credibility. They don't believe you, right? You came to me last time with this survey. You told me things were going to change and nothing changed, right? So we want to, when we're developing relationships and we're having organizing conversations, we want to be real. We want to be honest, right? So we want to do a little bit of that inoculation to let people know that, you shouldn't be expecting everything to happen all at once. However, we are trying to move in this direction and we're going to, I don't want you to kind of put people down, but at the same time, we have to do a certain amount of inoculation about what the opposition is. What are some of the obstacles to achieving our goals. Does that make sense? All right. So after you do some inoculation, finally, we get to the point where we have the ask. And what's the ask in this case? Right? Can you fill out the, would you be willing to fill out this survey as we're as we're gathering folks to gather information about who's voting and people's propensity to vote in the next election, those type of things? Will you help us by filling out this survey, right? This is what we're doing in this case, right? It could be a petition, it could be coming to the Board of Ed meeting, you know, it could be many different activities that you could ask a person to do to get involved in your campaign, in your organizing conversation, in your organizing campaign. Organizing campaigns have different goals, right? So this is a survey goal, but other organizing campaigns have different goals. That's why if you do get involved in a campaign, you want to see very specific benchmarks, goals, milestones that you're achieving along the way, because it really tells you whether or not you're moving in the right direction. Okay? So the ask should be what the person will stand for, right? Sometimes the ask is just a question. In this case, we look at this one. The question here is, will you take a stand by joining with your, again, we're using the co-workers, right, situation here to help build the union. Will you help create a list, map your unit, fill in names and locations of co-workers, accompany an organizer to call another unit member, things like that. What are some other asks we could ask people to do? We already used the survey. What are some other asks we can ask people after we've had an organizing conversation? To join the NAACP. It's very specific, right? It's measurable, right? You know, you can measure that. If you ask somebody whether or not they're gonna join the NAACP, suppose they say yes, and you don't have a card right there. What should you do?
You don't have a card with you.
If you don't have they say yes, I'll join the NAACP. I'm down for the cause. I like that you came out here and talked to me about this. I'm all agitated. I'm riled up. You know, you warned me that it wouldn't be easy, but I think I can handle this.
Get their contact information.
Get their contact information. Yep, absolutely. And what you want to do, which is kind of like the last thing, is you want to make sure that you follow up with the person, right? That you have a plan to follow up with the person on a very specific day, on a very specific time. So it's not unclear. Oh, I'll catch you next week. I'll bring one by. And you go by next week and the person's not there, or, oh no, I'm not available. So you say, no, next Wednesday at 3:30 at Dunkin' Donuts, Hartford Public Library, wherever it's gonna be, I'm gonna have that card, we're gonna meet there, you're gonna fill out this card, right? Kind of thing. So follow-up is very important in these situations. I don't know why my phone keeps going on. So follow-up is very important, because you could have a great conversation with somebody and, you know, the person is ready to go, and, you know, just for not following up, we could lose someone, you know? And again, we talked earlier about credibility, stuff like that. We want to maintain our credibility. We want to keep a good relationship, because we don't know later on in this campaign, you know, this person could be, you know, a huge leader, you know? And so we don't want to lose those people. We want to make sure we follow up. Does that make sense? Yes. All right. So I think we can do two things right now. We can go straight into assessments, okay? And then through the 3 chairs exercise, or we could do the 3 chairs exercise now. assessments after? All right, come on, let's do the 3 cheers exercise real quick. Everybody has their notes. So folks who came in a little bit later, just take a look at this. So you're just gonna be the person who's gonna watch and give the feedback after. You guys might wanna keep these with you. And so you're the observer, you're gonna give feedback. So we're gonna do about 3 to 5 minutes in each role. So you get 3 to 5 minutes to get at her. You're gonna give the feedback, and then you're gonna switch around. That make sense? You guys got that? Who's the organizer? Over here.
I'll do it.
You'll be the organizer? Okay, great. Brave man. You're gonna be the organizer first. So you're gonna set the example. You're gonna be the person being organized, okay? So he's trying to convince you to do something, right? And you're the person who's gonna be the observer first. And then after they're done for the first 3 to 5 minutes, then you'll give some feedback. Say, I think you did this well, I think you could do better at this, and da-da-da-da, or you forgot to do that part, kind of thing like that. But not observers, we're not trying to be critical, we're supposed to just be supportive, okay? So we don't want to be critical of each other, we're just trying to support. All right, 5 minutes, okay? Somebody got the clock?
I work as a writer for a group that publishes books.
So, what's your status?
Like where you live. Just tell me a bit about yourself. Where you live.
What's your like? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Never mind. So we're gonna have a rally outside the Board of Education, and we just have
Try to get more information on her, like about what she does.
what do you? Yeah, so you're a writer. What's your stand?
For instance, for example, my school, I go to JMA on Tower Avenue, Journalism Media, and this past week, Friday, we had a fight. And I think they should have addressed it more responsibility instead of fighting, because that's gonna lead on into having a record and not getting to good college, because at the end of the day, your future matters the most than anybody. So I think that's one of the major issues. And the second major, one of the other ones is more leadership in schools, because without leadership, we wouldn't be in the school today. And I think that leadership counts the most. It's like one of the most values out here, because we want to lead in example and not just by sight what everybody else does. And our future depends on it. So.
How do you feel? Do you feel like teachers do their jobs right all the time?
I think they do that, but I think they just need to talk to the kids a little more.
Diversify your workplace.
Somebody gets called out.
I do believe
That's
that's
not what you should do.
it is a good thing to have some diversity out there. And especially if you want to talk to your community about addressing more job opportunities, then that's a good thing. Because I'm pretty sure that some people are probably they're gonna be more interested in going to.
Organizer. Where are you when
More
you're
interested in going to something that, or applying to something when they see someone like them is interested in that very thing. They're gonna be like, oh, so this is what people like me are interested in, and I think I'm straight.
And did you agitate her a little bit? You tell her what we're doing is going to address her issue? Okay, cool.
We have, and trying to address it a little bit more towards people of color, like the issues that people of color suffer from, that maybe some people don't, that other people don't suffer from, other communities might not suffer from, or that every community suffers from, but maybe we suffer in a different way. And that's what we kind of want to like get our voice out there and represent the views of our communities. Not represent us as a whole, but just represent.
That's 5 minutes? All right, good job. Hey, good job, folks, good job. How did that feel for the first time, huh? The organizers, how did you feel doing that? Mm-hmm.
It felt like doing an interview, but I felt like doing an interview. I was gonna say something along the lines of, it felt like you were interviewing, but also being the interviewee.
That's interesting, yeah.
Like being interviewed and being the interviewer on the same.
Right,
in the same.
right, because you're having a conversation with purpose,
Right.
but at the same time, you need to get to know this person,
Right.
right? So you're learning from her, you're learning from the person you're organizing, so you are interviewing them, but at the same time, you're trying to move them or move the person or move the conversation to a place where we can do some action.
Right.
So then now you got to kind of put yourself out there a little bit, right? Very good. I like that. How about you?
It just felt like having a conversation, discussing problems.
Okay. Did you find some things in common, things that you could relate to? Another one of the things that they say when you're having an organizing conversation is that, you know, a lot of it is supposed to be listening, like really trying to absorb and hear from the other person, that piece that you talked about interviewing, you know, and then we get to the place where we want to move in a direction that we want to go into. But the other thing is that, you know, it really does kind of like force you to come out and make those common connections. Sometimes you can't help it. When you start to identify with someone that you're talking to, you know, you just pick up on something. It's like you have a similar experience. You have, you know, someone in your family's had an experience, that kind of thing, and you know, you just can't help it. You just get immersed in the conversation, right? Absolutely, because these relationships we're building over long term. We're going to see these people again. Don't want to be gassing them up with things that, you know, will never come to fruition, or like you said, like, you know, but at the same time, we have to balance that with, we're out here for a reason, so we must believe it's going to make some difference, right? So we want to keep the spirits high, but at the same time, you know, definitely not make promises we can't keep, right? How about you? What was your assessment of your organizer over here?
I feel like the introduction part was the most important because they get to know each other more and they get to learn about each other's sides and stuff.
Very good.
But can I give myself a little, you know, self-criticism? Because I feel like I got stuck in some areas. I was talking about I feel like I was talking a little bit of the what could be and the inoculation part. Kind of a little too much, because for the what it could be, I was saying to Tatiana, that's her name, right? I was saying to her that, like, what could it be to, like, you know, imagine a workplace with more diversity in it, and I was kind of just saying, like, and she was saying that it gives more people some more opportunities, and I was saying that I was agreeing with that because, you know, like, more diverse people in a certain area or a certain career field, like, it'll influence people to be like, oh, say people are interested in this, and then I felt like I was a bit rambling on why I agreed with her.
Okay.
Instead of saying, oh, I agree, and
Okay.
I think that makes sense, and then I could have probably just kept the conversation flowing a little better.
Yeah. Well, that's why we practice, you know, and that's good that you're even that thoughtful about this conversation. It was only 5 minutes, so, you know, you didn't have a whole bunch of time. Maybe if you had, you know, more time, you know, it would have flowed better. But after a few more times of doing it, you'll probably get better at it, you know?
Right.
Good job. I think, good job for all you guys. Congratulations again. You're involved here, right? Because one of the things is before we can make any change anywhere, we got to get organized. We got to get organized. We got to get our people together in order to make the change. If it's just you, your voice is strong and powerful in the universe, you know? But if it's a bunch of us, right, where it's even more strong and powerful, right? So that's what we need. That's where we need to get to. And we need to really have these organizing campaigns focused on very specific goals. If it's just one school, you know, for now, right? And then we build to 2 schools or 3 schools, or what have you, right? But we gotta get organized, we gotta get focused. That's why this organizing conversation is so important. That's why Maxine and Miss Shante and everyone else is out here helping and supporting you guys, because we all see the value. We all see the value in you, and we all want to support you, and we all see you as the future, right? Where we make these changes, okay?
Hello, I'm Stay McCauley, and I'm exploring a run for mayor of the city of Hartford in the 2019 election. It's undeniable that Hartford has many challenges. However, I believe that our residents are our strength. The question is, do you believe, like I do, in the potential of Hartford? You see the many assets the city has, but do you wonder, as I do, why we are still struggling to move ahead? Do you wonder why the solutions being offered to us just don't seem to get the job done? Well, creating a vibrant city begins with you. We have incredible people who live in the city, who have great solutions to Hartford's biggest challenges. But you don't always have a platform to have your ideas heard, let alone given an opportunity to co-create solutions that work for you, that work for us, that work for Hartford. Hartford's journey will be bumpy, and we'll continue to face highs and lows that challenge us to work smarter and come together as a community that is willing to capitalize on the power of our collective diversity of thought. The challenges facing Hartford will require each of us to act, whether in small ways or big ones. If you're with us on this journey, give me a call at 860-944-9797 and host a listening event for me. Invite a few of your friends so we can explore the possibilities together for a better Hartford.
What's going on? Oh, baby. What's really going on?
They're going to be organizers. I feel so hopeful right now. All right, so really quickly, there is a second organizing conversation that you could take a look at. It looks like this. You know, you can glance through it. There's more than one way to do this, but I think the elements that we talked about here, when we say introduction, get the story, who decides or agitate, right? And then what could be. That's where Kamari says, you know, you start to put yourself out there. You're the interviewer, but that's where you become the interviewee, because now you're saying, bless you. Now you're saying, this is where we can go. This is what we can do. That's where you express some hope. And then the inoculation, of course, the ask, and then follow up. So we got that. We're good on that, right? All right. So, assessments. Look at the back of this page 46. It looks like 46 I was on here, page 46. It's actually on the front. I said look on the back, but it's on the front. Page 46. It's not the back, it's the front, but it's on page 46. And what you'll see is collective bargaining campaign assessments. So again, don't worry about the collective bargaining campaign. You know, this could be assessment for any type of campaign. So we're talking about an organizing campaign that is going to lead to people attending a rally, or an organizing campaign that's going to lead to people signing a petition, or an organizing campaign that's going to lead to whatever the objectives are, because there's many different objectives depending on what campaign you're working on. This is an assessment tool, and you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense, right? Because it's really, really simple. But let me ask you this question. Why is it important to have assessments of the people that you're talking to? Assessments in an organizing campaign, why is it important to have assessments? Or maybe let's go through the assessments first, and then we'll get back to that. So assessments show where individual unit members are, right? If they're on an anti-union or pro-union continuum. And I'll say, taking it out of the union context, basically an assessment will say, this person that I just had an organizing conversation, is he or she with me, or is he or she against me, right? Because these conversations went well today because you guys had the same kind of opinions about things, right? But it could have been that you could have ran into somebody having an organizing conversation and says, I don't believe in that, right? So as you're doing your assessments, you want to know we have people that's with us, we have people that's against us, right? On our issue. And maybe they'll be with us on a different issue, but on this issue, they're not with us, right? So, go ahead. Oh, I thought you were trying to say something. Okay.
I was gonna say, like, I thought you were gonna ask for an example of, I thought you were gonna ask us for an example of an issue that someone might have an issue with.
Yeah,
Might
no,
be different
well,
from.
but if you want to offer one up, I'm willing to hear it.
This might sound controversial, but like, what if somebody actually said that they don't really care about there being a bunch of there being that much diversity in, you know, a school or something? Like them saying like, doesn't matter as long as the education's good or something like that.
There are people who say that. There are many people who say that. There are many, many people who say that. And there's many, right? So again, that will be an example. That's a very good example. We can't assume that our experience is the experience of other people, because other people may not have that experience. That's why the organizing conversation is so important, right? And that's also why the assessment is important, right? Because we want to know that the folks that are with us on this issue, okay, are with us, and the ones who are not with us, you know, we don't have to hate them, you know, we don't have to like go to war with them or anything like that, but we know we can't count on them for this issue. And maybe later on down the road, they'll be with us on another issue, but the assessment is for the campaign. It's for the campaign objectives that we're on. Whatever campaign we're on, we need to know, say if we have just imagine we have a list of 1,000 people on the wall, right? And these are the 1,000 people that we identified that we have to go out and have organizing conversations with because they have influence, or because they're important, or because they can move things. So we have 1,000 people. We need to know how many of those 1,000 people are with us, and how many of those 1,000 people are not with us, or how many of those 1,000 people are in the middle, or how many of those 1,000 people are people who are with us but they won't do any work, you know, those kind of things, right? That's where you get the picture of how strong you are and how likely you are to achieve your goal, your campaign goals. Does that make sense? So these assessments are very important. When organizing, we use them for charting large groups of people, right? Most of the time it's our members, charting our members. If I go to, you know, the Hartford Public School teachers and I ask them that question, do you think diversity in the classroom is an important thing? out of 1,800 teachers in Hartford, how many of them think it's important, right? Or think it's something that should change? So I need that assessment to know if I can get enough people to support moving that agenda, right? If most of them say no, right, then I'm basically, we're fighting against ourselves, right? So we need to make sure that our assessments are reflecting the will of the people.
Right.
Excuse me, the will of the people. All right, so organizing committee for volunteers, active leaders who take assignments and move. So this is a number one. You guys who go out and have the organizing conversation, who do the work, like Maxine is a number one, right? She's a one. She's a person that you can count on, that she'll get things done, right? She'll follow. And the number one thing that makes a person a one is people follow them, okay? If you want to know anything about a one, which is a leader in our assessments, because the assessments are 1 to 4, right? A one is a leader, okay? Now, you could be great as far as following through on tasks and getting things done, but if no one follows you, you're not a one. You're a solid supporter, but you're not a one. You're a one when people follow you. Meaning, if I'm gonna go to this event, I can get 2, 3, 4, at least one, but I can get 1, 2, 3, 4 people to come with me. Get what I'm saying? Because they respect me. They say, oh, you going there? And I ask them to come with me, they'll come with me, right? So I'm a leader. Leaders must have followers. And not like blind followers, like zombies, they'll do whatever I tell them to do. It doesn't have to be like that. It's just you have relationship with people that respect you enough that if you ask them to do something, right, they'll do it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Now a 2 is a tested supporter. What do I mean by tested supporter? So if you're having an organizing conversation with somebody and you go to their house and you say, yeah, I want you to sign this card, and they say, yeah, I'll do it, I'll sign it, right? And then you try to set a date to go give them the card because you don't have it on you, say for example, and every time you try to go to get them to sign the card, they never signed the card, right? But they said, I support you, right? But every time you ask them to take a stand or to do something, they won't do it, right? Go ahead.
So it's kind of like someone who you're trying to assess whether they're really passionate about, doing this thing, advocating for these certain topics or these certain issues. So it's like you're assessing them, be like, hey, can you commit to this? And they say, yeah, I can commit. But on some level, they say that they can, but they can't really show that they can.
Exactly, they're not tested, right?
Mm-hmm. They
have to be tested. So in order for a person to be a solid supporter, they have to be tested, right? And tested means you give them a challenge, or whatever the challenge is, or whatever it is, and it could just be signed, right? It can't just, sometimes it could be say, right? Sometimes all we're asking people to do is express verbal commitment, right? If that's a part of the campaign. That's a smaller ask, that's a lower level ask, right? Harder asks are to come out somewhere or to donate money to something, or those are harder asks. But a smaller ask sometimes could just be, to express verbal commitment. So that is an example of a test. It's an assessment tool. It's a tool that we use to assess people. So if the person does verbally commit, and that's what your assessment tool is being used at that time, then that person was tested. But if you say, we're past verbal commitment, now we need you to sign the petition, right? And I have the petition right here, and they're like, I gave you the verbal commitment. I told you I'm down with you. It's like, why do I need to sign that? Well, this is where we're at in the campaign. We're moving up. So a person who maybe expressed the verbal commitment first time, that assessment made them a solid supporter. Now it's time for them to sign the petition. They won't sign the petition. Are they still a solid supporter?
They won't sign it?
They won't sign it. They've expressed verbal commitment. That was the first test, expressed verbal commitment. Now, this is the second test. Now we're doing a petition now, right? And they won't sign the petition. Are they a solid supporter?
No,
No,
because
they
like,
aren't.
they say like your actions speak louder than your words.
That's right.
So if you're not putting action to what you're trying to join or doing, then you're not doing what you're really saying. You're just speaking it, but like you said, don't put in broken promises.
Exactly.
So
So that person there would be put in the category of probably a number 3, right? So a number 3 is a person who's wishy-washy, or waving from side to side. They're straddling the fence, if you will, right? One day they're on this side, next day they're on this side, right? They don't know they don't know which way they're going sometimes, right? So they're kind of in flux, right? They could be with you one day and talk to somebody else and be like, nah, I don't think I'm, sometimes they're afraid, right? Sometimes they just don't think it's their job to get involved, that somebody else should do it, right? So those people we put those people in the category of a 3. So again, the assessment, you need a tool, you need a test in order to assess people. You can't just look at them and say, you know what, I like the way she talked. You know what, I bet you a lot of people follow her too. I'm gonna put her as a 1, right? We can't really do that. We need objective criteria. We need tests in order to put people in that. We can't just judge, because sometimes we are wrong, right? When we just judge people, we have to have a test in order to put an assessment, right? Make sense? And obviously a 4 is what? What's a 4?
Unit member who consistently fails at passing tests or supports, he or she will not vote, join, or actively works in opposition to the union.
Right.
So they're just someone who doesn't support. They're kind of just someone who doesn't support our cause. Won't sign anything, or maybe in some case they might be on the opposite side of us.
That's right.
And
That's exactly it.
I'm hoping that we don't have to, get super angry and violent and say, hey, you betrayed us, or you're on the wrong side.
Yeah, right, exactly. But a 4 is, if a 4 is against us, they just don't agree with us, right? They're against our cause, they're against what we're trying to do. They're never gonna support us. They're never gonna, on this issue, right? Because you gotta remember, we gotta go issue by issue, right? On this issue, they'll never support us. So we don't count on them, we just realize that we don't always reach consensus, right? So that person is a 4, okay? Any questions on those 4 assessments? A 1 is what? A leader. And what's the number 1 quality of a leader? They have followers, right? They have followers. Leaders must have followers, right? What's a 2? That's a 3. That's a 3 that's on the fence, right? The 3 is on the fence. A 2, what's a 2?
Someone who's been tested.
Someone who's been tested, a supporter. You said something too? Tested supporter, right? This person is solid. This person is solid. There's a supporter, they're gonna sign the petition, they're gonna do everything, but they don't necessarily lead anybody, right? Meaning they'll bring themselves, and their self is involved, but they're not really committing beyond that so much to bring others and get others involved. You get what I'm saying? So they may sign the petition, but they're not gonna take the petition and go get it signed by others. Okay, a leader will take a leader will sign the petition and then take the petition and go get it signed by others. Okay, make sense? So that's a 1 and 2, and a 3 is on the fence, right? That person is on the fence. We don't know. One day they're with us, one day they won't. They say they support us today, and then tomorrow, we don't know what to expect, right? And then a 4 is against us. Now the L, some people put L's on a chart for leader. I don't think it's necessary because we know a 1 is a leader, but some people do. If they want to, they can. And some people use zeros. A 0 is a person, So we have the 1,000 names on the wall. Remember we had 1,000 names on the wall? For pretend. For pretend we had 1,000 names on the wall. And zeros are people who we just have not assessed yet. So we don't know. No one has talked. We haven't had an organizing conversation with them yet. See what I'm saying? So once we have an organizing conversation, which has an ask, that's why the ask in the organizing conversation is so important. Because if you don't ask, there's no test.
So is there who's not been tested?
Yes, there's many people who haven't been tested, people who we haven't had conversations with, and given them an opportunity to say yes or no to our cause, right? And so there's multiple factors, right? We have to create the plan, the idea, the plan, the campaign, whatever the organizing campaign is. We're gonna keep Batchelder School open, right? For example, now we go and we think about all the people in around who's gonna support us, who's not gonna support us, and this, that, and the other, who has power, who has influence. And we map out all of the people who have the power, who have the influence, and we begin to have organizing conversations with them, right? This is what, right? And then we try to get to hear what they have to say. I think the school should close. They should close the school, right? So we mark that down. We go to the other person. Oh no, I think the school should stay open. And guess what? I got 6 other people that's down with me too. You should talk. We should talk to them too, right? So we know how to assess that person. That person's a 1 if they actually come through with the 6 people. Now, if they say, oh, I got 6 people, but you never see those 6 people, you only see that person. So that person may be solid and they're a 2, but they're not a leader, right? Because they, at least until they bring those 6 people, right? Or even if they bring 1 person, you could be a leader of 1 person, right? You still could be considered a leader even if it's 1 person. All right, we good on that? Any questions? All right, so that's really what I have. I just really want to get some feedback from you guys. Tell me what you think about today. Anything that comes to your mind, anything that you want to express, anything that you like or dislike about this. Now, this is your time to, observe me and assess me too on this thing too, or this whole exercise if you want.
Like you're talking about how if you have 6 people on your side and then the other part if you don't, but you say you're doing all this, doesn't that, for example, for MLK, Martin Luther King, the school, I forgot what sheet that's on. I think one of the 2 major topics is there's a debating on closing and opening because 1, MLK was